Today we are going to discuss a major announcement that has been made in the India AI Summit, and this is huge. Bangalore-based private company Sarvam, but although it is private, but it is India's model to work in a open source and the government support to the private companies in the entire AI ecosystem. So it doesn't work independently. It has been heavily funded by the India AI mission. It's a private company working in an integrated manner with the government and other institutions in the India's AI ecosystem. And the company is Sarvam. Sarvam has announced an AI app called as Indus. And in Indus, there is a chatbot named as Vikram. Vikram is India's AI-based chatbot. Name has been given to honor Vikram Sarabhai, the father of India's space program. This is huge because they are based upon LLM, large language model, which has been indigenously developed. There are two of them that has been announced by the company, Sarvam 30B and Sarvam 105B. I'll tell you what these numbers are, 30 and 105, but larger the number, the more complex task can be taken up by the model. So Sarvam 105B, of course, will be more advanced. See, until few years back, it was the dominance of US in generative AI, and China's DeepSeek broke it. They thought it will happen, but China made it sooner than what they could have imagined and broke the dominance of US-centric generative AI. Currently, there are many coming from there. GPT model from the ChatGPT or the Gemini's model or Grok. It's all US-centered, but the DeepSeek is able to handle as complex tasks as the GPT 4.0 of ChatGPT in 1/10 of the cost. So this could be our moment. China broke that unipolarity into bipolarity in the AI ecosystem, and this India's entry could make it trilateral. So this is a huge news, a huge thing that India has developed indigenously the ecosystem for LLM. To take the discussion forward, I have to introduce few terms to you, which you might already be familiar with, but I have to tell you to make things a little simple. LLM is large language model, and these models are used to train the AIs. And it's like teaching them all the books. They read all the books of the libraries. For example, if a student, very child prodigy, he's a superhuman, and he read all the books and all the research papers, all the essays, you ask a question to him, he will answer from what he has read, but he will not make exact copy of the sentences or paras. He will rephrase it in his own understanding and of his own grasp, and he will phrase the answer. So exactly that's how they work. They consume all the books. Virtually the entire internet, whatever is on the internet and beyond, they read all of it. And then when you ask a question, they phrase it in their own words. And LLM is a type of artificial intelligence software that has been trained on enormous amount of text data, all the books and websites and articles and the conversations that exist. Many times it is alleged that illegally they access many data, proprietary-based data, so that it can understand and generate human-like language. So the GPT or the ChatGPT was the first initial model. Then Gemini came, and Grok came, and DeepSeek came, and Sarvam now has developed its own LLM. Okay, the problem with the global LLM is that mostly they are English dominant. Their training has been in the English language. And if they've not been trained in the local language, then translations from the local language or the text-to-speech translation or speech-to-text translation will not be efficient. There'll be errors. It is important to have a locally grown LLM because the technology will create more digital divide in that case, if the local languages are not included. And almost all of the global LLM, they are focused on training in English language. Although ChatGPT can talk in different languages, but they are not thoroughly trained. And if they're not thoroughly trained, then there are going to be glitches, there are going to be hallucination when you use the model in other languages. So that would be a problem. There's a term called as parameter. The word large in that phrase, large language model, is defined by the parameter. For example, I told you that the two of the LLM This is 30 is the parameter, 105 is the parameter. B is for billion. So these are the numerical settings that the model adjusts during training. More parameters mean that the model can capture more complex patterns. For example, the Sarvam 30B on 30 billion parameters, but 105B on 105 billion parameters. That will be touching to the estimated parameter of ChatGPT 4. So the model is very advanced. The 105B model of Sarvam is as advanced, we can say, as ChatGPT 4. But the advantage would be that it is advanced, no doubt, but also in Indian languages. 22 scheduled languages plus English. A term that you'll often read in newspaper is sovereign LLM. Sovereign LLM would refer to the LLM that has been built, trained, deployed, and controlled entirely within the country's own border. Currently, we have been using Grok or ChatGPT or Gemini or DeepSeek or Claude. None of them has been developed here. None of them. So we didn't have a sovereign LLM. BharatGen has developed, but that is mostly for defense and for governance. On commercial level, this is the first announcement of indigenous LLM. So this is a huge news. Even for your coming prelims, this is going to be important. You often read the news about data sovereignty. Data sovereignty is a huge issue. Sovereignty is there in the preamble of Indian Constitution that the Republic of India will be sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic. But the sovereignty is being taken away. Much of the power exercised by the tech giants, the social media giants, and they have the data of Indian citizens as well, with little control of the Indian government. Sovereignty is a basic characteristic of a nation state, and the nations, they have to own it back. But the power asymmetry exists so much that the sovereignty almost is eroded for many countries. For data sovereignty, for the protection of the data of Indian citizen, for the privacy, which is declared as a fundamental right, the sovereign LLM is very important. As we had the sovereignty in terms of missile development, we had our own missile programs, we had our own space programs, we had our own supercomputers, we have our own development of biologics and biosimilars and vaccines. Similarly, this is an area where we have to advance. Otherwise, this will take away sovereignty and a lot of the advantages from our demographic dividend and our tech capabilities. We have to advance. So this was to happen after DeepSeek. We were waiting that where is our AI? And here it is. So it's a huge, huge moment. For national security, foreign AI models cannot be completely trusted, especially for defense purpose, where the government has announced or dictated for data localization. In defense and finance, these are the two areas that government has taken it very seriously, that data of defense and data of finance has to be localized. For general governance purpose as well, it will always be better from security perspective and also from inclusion perspective that the LLM is sovereign, that has been trained thoroughly in the local language. So that's the problem. The foreign LLMs are English centric. So it is important. It is Sarvam AI models. We are taking it as a sovereign LLM because it built from scratch in India, trained on Indian data, hosted on Indian infrastructure, and designed to understand all 22 scheduled Indian languages. So, there are two aspects of it. Digitally, it is sovereign. On Indian languages, hosted in India, trained in India, developed by Indians. So there is no doubt an element of sovereignty here if we look at it, the digital aspect. But there is also physical aspect, the processing, that training, that requires a hardware that acts as the brain, the processor of the AI. And there we are lacking. So the general processor, as you know from your childhood, are CPUs in the computer. But there are specialized processors for AI called as GPUs, graphic processing unit, or NPUs, neural processing unit. And these advanced chips, we are years away from developing them, years away. The legacy chips, we do not develop even that. So when it comes to hardware, there are still a lot to achieve. But in the digital architecture, it seems that we have arrived in terms of sovereign LLM. So in the terms of model, large language model, we have achieved it. But the real sovereignty will be achieved when we also develop the hardware, the AI chips, as they're calling it now, the GPUs and the NPUs. There's one more thing I have to tell you, that is MOE, mixture of experts. Now imagine if you go to a hospital and if you have an eye problem, all the eye doctors assemble there to treat you. Or you have a general problem with some infection, and all the physicians, all the diagnosticians, they all assemble to treat you. Now, that will not be very efficient, will it? What about the other patients? And they have to do to and fro and rush if all they have to go as a team to each patient. Rather, they get distributed, all the experts, and so that all the capacity of the hospital, even in the niche area, is not utilized in one node, meaning one patient. Okay, generally, traditionally, when ChatGPT came, we give any query as simple as what is the capital of India. Then the entire neural network gets activated to answer that. And that is a highly inefficient way. So mixture of expert means that you have experts at all layer, but all the neural network of the AI is not activated at the same time. So that reduces the cost, that makes the AI more affordable, and the performance is also better because each expert becomes deeply specialized, leading to higher quality of responses in its domain. So it gets trained, and this is how the Sarvam is beating up even the larger models of Gemini. Gemini 3 is very large. It is not declared how large it is. Perhaps it is larger than ChatGPT. And the latest version of Grok is also very large. Sarvam is not that very large. It does compete with GPT 4.0. It's not very large. But this is the indigenous innovation that has been done, which is called as MOE, mixture of expert. You have to know this. This term is important. So in traditional AI model, every parameter is activated for every single query. So if a model has 30 billion parameters, then all 30 billion parameters work on every question, even a very simple question. But MOE changes this. The model is divided into many expert subnetworks, and the subnetworks can handle your query. Now, all the expert in a single layer will not be used to answer all the questions. So that reduces the cost. How? That reduces the running cost. If all the networks and all the nodes are active, like the nerve cells, if we are using more of the brain, then we require more glucose. You'll get tired very soon. And if you stress on something very much, you focus on something very much, you'll feel hungry because brain uses glucose. Similarly, the data centers where the nodes are, where the AI chip is, they will require more electricity, and electricity demand is going to be huge for AI. So obviously this makes more sense. This is smart. This is smart. So mixture of expert, MOE. Now let me bring you back to this diagram. If you make a comparison between Sarvam 30B and Sarvam 105B, then you know the total parameters here are 30 billion and 105 billion. So obviously this is more advanced, and for longer and more complex tasks, this is more suitable. But you know, both of them uses MOE model, mixture of expert model. Be familiar with this term, MOE. And only 1 billion per output token, making it extremely cheap to run. There are 30 billion parameters, but 1 billion parameter will be activated in a particular query. And there are 105 billion parameters, and 9 billion parameters will be activated on a particular query. They both have been trained in all 22 Indian scheduled languages plus English. They both are open source. This is very important. This is a model that Government of India has adopted to keep it open source. So when it comes to performance, I must tell you, they outperform DeepSeek, and they will also outperform Gemini. When it comes to something called as MMLU, massive multitask language understanding. If you compare the Sarvam with the Gemini model or the DeepSeek model, Sarvam will be it is very obvious because it has been trained in the many of the languages. So the switching, if you do the code switching to different languages, they will not be able to do. The better translation and communication in different languages that the Gemini or DeepSeek will not be able to do as efficiently as Sarvam will do. So massive multitasking language understanding. In this parameter, nothing can beat the sovereign LLM that we have achieved. Yeah, so this is what I was telling you. It outperforms most or all of the LLM model that we have of GPT-4 or the model of Gemini or DeepSeek or Claude. In MMLU, Sarvam will outperform each one of them. See, US leads with proprietary giants, GPT and Gemini, and China pushes with state-backed alternatives like DeepSeek. India has a unique approach where government is funding but still keeping it open source. This is the way government of India is developing the AI ecosystem in India. It is focusing on the linguistic diversity and the MOE architecture for population scale affordability. So in a very planned and a very cautious way, the government of India is developing the AI ecosystem, which is pretty impressive, pretty impressive. Like we became an expert in the IT sector, it seems like in the LLM models and the digital architecture of AI, we are expanding. We are doing pretty good in that. The whole of it is coming under the India AI mission. The policy architecture, the larger umbrella under which everything is developing, is the India AI mission. $1.25 billion, that is the budget so far sanctioned to the India AI mission. And the objective is to build domestic AI capabilities, reduce the dependence on foreign systems, and promote AI for governance. To promote AI for governance, we require sovereign AI. And Sarvam AI, the company, this has come up with the sovereign AI. It will be called as sovereign. You understand the ecosystem, everybody is working together. The IT consortium and the other institutions and the private institutions and the government guidelines, there's an ecosystem. So all this done by a private institution, but is done in the support system of the government of India and is done domestically and uses the data domestically and everything is designed domestically, hosted domestically. So it will be called as sovereign LLM. Okay. So Sarvam AI is the largest beneficiary, almost rupees 99 crore for taking more than 4,000 NVIDIA GPU. I hope you're aware that GPUs, the CPUs as we have for computers traditionally, now the GPUs and the NPUs and the TPUs, they are called as the AI chips. And the provider of the AI chips is NVIDIA. NVIDIA is the dominant player in development of AI chips, and almost wholly, we take the AI chips from NVIDIA. I told you, digitally we are doing well. We have a base of IT. We don't doubt have that. But manufacturingly, we are not doing good. So the hardware that will be used in the training of the LLM models, that is 100% imported, 100%. We don't have a fabrication lab for development of the chips. The first one is coming in Dholera in Gujarat in association with PSMC. The main company of Taiwan is TSMC, but the other one, the PSMC, we have got into collaboration with it, the Tata Electricals, and that will be our first fabrication lab. So we are years away from developing AI chip. Those are legacy chips. So never mind, at least digitally we have developed. There were 12 companies that has been selected for the larger support from the India AI mission, Sarvam AI and Socket and Ganani.ai, GAN AI, Bharat Gen. You have to know about Bharat Gen. Bharat Gen is also working on LLM. It also has developed LLM. But Bharat Gen develops LLM for institutions like ISRO and DRDO and for specialized government purpose. It hasn't developed a commercial chat box or commercial AI app, an LLM that will cater to the commercial use of the AI app. That Bharat Gen has not done. But Bharat Gen does work very specialized for the specialized government institutions. But they also have developed LLM. So the announcement is not the first one. We have had our LLM. But on a commercial scale, on that large scale that will compete with the GPT model that has trained in all scheduled languages, on that scale, it is the first one by Sarvam AI. Okay. So the problem, how do we go from here? To go from here, we have done quite well in digitally. We have to do better in the physical architecture, in development of the microprocessors, in the chips as we call it, and the more advanced one, the AI chips. So they work differently. It's not the normal legacy chip that the CPU has. The metrics calculation, everything is little different in the AI chip. So the GPUs and the TPUs and the NPUs, the graphics processing unit or the tensor processing unit or the neural processing unit, the advanced AI chips, we got to have that. We get to have, we need to have more collaboration. For example, with Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC. We had with PSMC, now we must have with TSMC. India has joined the Pax Silica. Pax means peace, and I hope you have heard of it. The announcement has been done recently. India has formally now joined the Pax Silica, which is the US based. I think it must be mentioned in the new, somewhere in the notes here. Yeah, it's a US based initiative of managing the supply chains of silica and the chips and the technologies related to AI and also the critical minerals, the rare earth minerals around in the Indo-Pacific rim. And India has been the member of it, but we need to have more collaborations. We haven't had any breakthrough with any JV, any collaboration with a US-based company to have the processors, the microprocessor units here. We haven't had that. We need to have more diplomatic maneuvering so that we can remove this GPU dependency. We have to remove this in the future. This is going to be a choke point. So India still depends on NVIDIA for all the AI chips. Pax Silica we have joined, but you have to see how much of benefit we get from Pax Silica and how much of joint collaboration we can have. In the budget recently, India Semiconductor Mission 2.0 has been announced. And the idea of India Semiconductor Mission 1.0 was to give subsidies. There were production linked incentives and design linked incentives. So the government of India was ready to give 50% subsidy, which is huge for a processing unit because around $10 billion goes into the setting up of processing units. It's a very costly thing. So the idea was to give subsidies, and they were welcoming the companies from outside to come here and do the manufacturing. Government of India was ready to subsidize them. But there were no takers, not even one, none. And very lately, just one we have got from PSMC collaborating with the Tata Electricals. So now, obviously, that didn't work. We have to change. The way we have worked for missile is indigenizing it, everything, design, manufacturing, testing. We have worked in space like that. We have worked in IT sector like that. We have worked in automobiles like that. We have to do the same. So the India Semiconductor Mission 2.0 is designed towards manufacturation as well. So maybe a breakthrough happens in this and we start to develop the GPU chip. That is something that should be the next target. The copyright resolution. A copyright resolution, this is also making news because the text and data mining is an issue of TDM. And there's also a case going on between OpenAI and ANI. ANI has filed a case against OpenAI that they have used their proprietary data to train their model on. And then the position of OpenAI is that they have not published it anywhere. They have not circulated it anywhere. And the law says publishing and circulation of those things are illegal. That's the language you must have read for the copyrights. They haven't published, they haven't circulated, they have trained it. Now, many of the countries have done reform to their copyright laws to allow the training of the AI, the LLMs, on many of the data available on the internet. So OpenAI broke the firewall, the payment wall that you can pay and then access. They didn't pay. They broke the wall, accessed the data, and they trained their LLM. So in US and other countries, that will not be illegal. In our country, that is still illegal. So to develop more LLM, there is some resolution required regarding this copyright issue. So some legal clarity, what amount of data LLM can be using, and whether proprietary data can be used for LLM or not. Indian government has to clarify that. Talent retention is a big issue. It's a big issue. India produces world-class AI researchers. India has 20% of the design engineers for the microprocessors. But they are working for other countries, not Indian countries, because Indian companies, they are working for other companies in India because there are not leading companies who are doing designing of the micro. They're working for Nvidia and they're working for Samsung. Most of them have R&D center here. And it's a matter of pride for us that we have 20% of design engineers globally. But the thing is, although there are 20% of design engineers as Indians, but they're working not for Indian companies. So as long as the R&D center is here, they're here. Otherwise, they'll be taken elsewhere by those. Talent retention is a big issue. The data quality, Indian languages data sets are still limited compared to English. So what they do is they develop synthetic or translated data. And then there are hallucinations if it is not the real data. So the data quality is a issue. The digitization of the literature in the regional languages is required, and permission to use them. If you do not allow the copyrighted material, then the books, the literatures, the news, nothing is accessible to you to train your LLM model on. Then you have to use synthetic data, artificially created data, which is not considered very good for smooth learning and smooth training of the LLM. So this issue has to be resolved, whether or not the copyright material be used for training the LLM. OpenAI has given a position in Delhi High Court that they have not published it anywhere, they have not circulated it anywhere. So, and this much of autonomy is required for innovation and tech development. The matter is still sub judice. I don't know what the position of the court would be, but it has to be allowed. If it is not allowed, then the training will become very difficult. Then the energy. In the previous lectures, we might have touched on this, that the data centers, they are energy guzzlers, highly energy intensive, because those nodes are always active. And you have to train them on so many models, so many are training them on entire internet. So training and then maintaining it, if the app is active now and people are using the Sarvam AI app, the chatbot Vikram. So you understand it, even if you're using the lower LLM model 30B, it will activate 1 billion nodes in every query. If you're using DeepSeek and ChatGPT and other, you see that for one simple query, if you search on the internet search option, turn on that, 20, 30, 40 web pages are searched for simple queries. That is intensive activity going on. So a huge amount of energy is required for it. And we'll have to see as to from where we will get our energy for training the LLM and then working on with the AI apps. And that perhaps will come from the nuclear sector. Cannot be provided by the coal or cannot be provided by the renewables. Renewables cannot be scaled up that fast. We are shifting away from coal. The only option then is nuclear. And we are years away. By 2030, 2032, we will have our SMRs, small nuclear, small modular reactors, SMRs. So it is at the cusp of happening. By 2030, maybe if we have more manufacturing of GPU, by 2030, our SMRs are ready. By 2030, we have more joint ventures agreements under the Pax Silica. Then we will be on our way. And India will really form a new center, and the world AI ecosystem will become trilateral between US, China, and India. But so much of work has to be done. Thank you very much. See you next day with another topic.